Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we have another interesting Swedish beer for you. I'm going to continue on with this kind of mini series of Swedish reviews that are airing for you over December. But for this one we are going to go to Heavy Metale Brewery, who are kind of from Stockholm but also from a place called Markaryd, which is near it's kind of near Helsingborg actually. But this should be a really interesting one. This beer is called Crucified Barbara in the red, named of course, and the signature beer of the band Crucified Barbara, who are from Stockholm, and it's named after their album as well. But this one is described as being a hard-hitting red ale, and if you've watched my channel before you'll know that that's right up my street. I really love Imperial Reds and red IPAs, so I'm very interested to try this one and see what it's like. It kind of reminded me a bit when I saw the name Heavy Metale Brewery on System Bolaget. I ordered this beer through the online system, but when I saw the name of this brewery it kind of reminded me of the Black Metal Brewery back home in Scotland. They make some really good beers, so I hope Heavy Metale Brewery are another brewery in that light, and it's quite cool to see more metalheads brewing beer actually. But anyway, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual website links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that I'll do from Heavy Metale Brewery, because this is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's also the Facebook page for the channel, please like it, and also my Untappd profile too, so feel free to add me as a friend on there. And to my Swedish viewers, I do apologise in advance if any of my Swedish pronunciations aren't quite right, but please do let me know some of the other Swedish beers you'd like me to have a review of. But there's quite a few of them coming up for you in this kind of Swedish mini-series, as I said, that will come out over December. But anyway, to tell you about Heavy Metale Brewery. So this brewery was founded by Lina Simonsson and Per Johansson, and both of these guys, as you may guess, love heavy metal music and also craft beer. But Lina is actually the marketer for the brewery, and she deals with a lot of the business side of things, but Per is the brewmaster, and the company offices are based in Markaryd, which I told you about. It's about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to the northeast of Helsingborg, which is just a bit to the north of me in Lund. But the beer is actually brewed at Vallentuna, which is on the outskirts of Stockholm. So Lina and Per are also helped out at the brewery by Jesper Alman, who is a rock journalist with reported very heavy culinary leanings. Apparently enjoys his food and his beer. Robert Gustafsson as well, who is Chief Rebel Angel is his alias, but he's a metal blogger. And there's also Fredrik Jarnberg, who is a hop maestro apparently. He's a metal blogger as well. And on the Heavy Metale Brewery website, as I said, in the description below, you can have a look at all of their reviews and all of their blogs and things. The whole idea behind this brewery is essentially to create craft beer for metalheads and to link the idea of live music and drinking good beer. So quite cool in that regard, and as I say, it reminds me a lot of the Black Metal Brewery back from Scotland. But these guys are interesting because what they do is they dedicate a batch of their beer to each to a different metal song actually, and they make a link using QR coding, and I'll just show you that when we actually get to the tasting part of the beer. But the other beers you can get from these guys includes Dead Man's Hop IPA, Crucified Barbara in the red, which is this guy here, the Morkast de Smålands, which is it's described as being a darkest ale. There's also Sweet Lovin' Hop Ale, Unbeatable Rock IPA, White Wheat Snake Wheat Beer, and also Wolf Pale Moon Ale. So yeah, a little bit of tongue twisters, but apparently the beers are pretty good. I think it's only the Dead Man's Hop IPA and this one that you can get through System Bolaget so far, but I think the other ones will probably follow fairly soon if they aren't already there. But anyway, let's actually get on to the tasting section of this video. This beer, as I told you, is related. It's the signature beer actually of the band Crucified Barbara, who are an all-female kind of traditional hard rock heavy metal style band from Stockholm. They were founded back in 1998 I believe, but apparently they also love craft beer, and this beer was done as a kind of collaboration with them, and they seem to really quite like it and the other heavy metal beers. But it's a 4.6% red ale, and the QR code on this one, as I told you, these QR codes apparently when you scan them with your phone they link you to a different song or whatever, and this one gives you access to the full Crucified Barbara in the Red album, which was released in September 2014. I think the beer was done to coincide with the release of that as well. But on the side it says, yeah, you unlock the QR code, but yeah, on this side it actually says the story behind the name Crucified Barbara. The band members once came across something very unexpected in a forest, a blow-up doll generically called Barbara throughout Sweden and attached to a crucifix. They didn't identify with the victim, they claimed the power of the aggressor. So yeah, pretty cool. But I'll just let you have a little quick look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. Just get the camera up and make sure that you're seeing that. Yeah, just bring it back here, but you can see it's got the kind of typical eagle wings that you expect of some of these heavy metal bands. You can see the Crucified Barbara logo up there. I think that is actually the logo that goes on the that is actually the band's logo as well, so that's pretty cool. But you can see at the bottom there some nice other metal artwork as well. It looks really quite cool actually. Really quite like the label for this, so I'll definitely steam it off and try and keep it. But as you can see, plain bottle cap on this one. But yeah, should be a really nice one. So without further ado, let's get it open and we'll get on with the tasting here. But yeah, I'll need to have a further listen to Crucified Barbara after I do the review. Actually, I listened to one or two of their songs while I was kind of writing up the brewery notes and doing the research on it, and they do seem pretty interesting band actually. I've listened to a couple of the bands such as Enforcer, who are the sort of traditional heavy metal style, and the Crucified Barbara kind of reminded me of that a little bit, a sort of all-female version. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a nice kind of coppery amber colour. There's quite a big head on that. This isn't all of the beer actually, but it's got a nice two-finger creamy coloured head on this. I would definitely say it's quite a dark coppery amber colour. If I put it over to the light, it probably shows you the copper. You can probably see the copper colour of it a bit better. It looks really nice. Quite a bit of big bubble sticking towards the bottom of the glass. A little bit of sediment visible as well, and you could see that in the bottle while I was pouring it, but quite a lot of smaller carbonation bubbles rushing towards the bottom of that head there. It looks really nice. So let's have a look at the aroma of this beer. It actually comes across as being quite yeasty. Not so much in the way of a hoppy character, but it's a bit more subtle. There is a good bit of grassy, slightly floral aromatic-y hop coming out of this one, but there's a lot of yeasty, bready character in this beer. Quite grainy as well, but yeah, mainly a kind of bready, yeasty character, as I say. Quite doughy actually, quite a white bready note I would hasten to add. Yeah, it actually smells a lot like a Belgian beer, which isn't what I was expecting at all. I was expecting more of a kind of American red IPA or like an American amber ale or something like that. But yeah, definitely more of a Belgian aroma on this one. I'll just put the rest of it in the glass and see if that adds anything further to it. But yeah, definitely coming across as a good bit. Very much like a Belgian ale actually. Huge head on it as you can see, and again, that's a kind of typical trait of Belgian ales. There's a bit more sediment come into it now. But yeah, as you put a little bit more into the glass, definitely, you can pick out a bit of lemony citrus with this beer as well, but grassy hops, a bit of floral aromaticity. Not really picking out much in the way of a kind of tropical fruit note in this one, which is normally what you'd expect from a sort of amber ale a little bit, especially an American one. But yeah, quite big bready and yeasty notes. There's not much more to say about the aroma, so we'll get stuck into this guy. I'll take a bit of the head away first. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite big in flavour actually. Yeah. I've seen that when I was researching this beer, I saw on Rate Beer that it was described as an amber ale, but for me, it's got a lot more of a characteristic of a Belgian beer, I would think, and it really is that kind of big, bready, yeasty character. This to me isn't like a red beer at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, it tastes good, but it's not a red ale. Definitely not a red ale, I would say. If anything, if you were to say it was a red ale, it would be more like a kind of English style red ale rather than an American red ale. The English style red ales, of course, it was a type of bitter beer that had a big sort of bready malt base and a lot of cereally character, and it leaves you with a little bit of a kind of spicy, bitter character on the palate. But yeah, even as my palate adjusts to this, it's still sticking with that kind of bready, the big kind of white bready yeasty character. That just blankets the middle of your tongue there. There is a bit more complexity to it. Yeah. After your palate adjusts to it a little bit, there are some more subtle flavours come out though, but I would say it definitely does stick in that kind of big, kind of sort of Belgian-y bready yeast character. This beer It's not like a red ale that I've ever had before. I have to say that quite honestly. It's not like a red ale that I've ever tried. To me, it reminds me a lot more of a Belgian beer, simply for that big bready yeasty character. But let your palate adjust to it a bit more and you'll start to get a wee bit more of the subtle flavours. At the back corners of the palate you can get a little bit of a sort of earthy kind of hoppy character coming out of this beer. And there is, around the very front curve of your tongue, you'll pick up a bit of a floral aromatic character coming out of this one as well. It's quite nice actually, and in the aftertaste it leaves you just a little bit of a dryness there. Definitely floral aromatic. Around the edges of the tongue, perhaps it's a little bit more grassy, but it meets up quite well with the slightly earthy characters in the back corners of the palate that I was talking about. But yeah, the other thing I read about this beer was that the idea was to actually combine apparently one of the girls in the band was keen on the idea of either a brown ale or a bitter, so the compromise that was made was a red ale, which has a little bit more of a it has elements of both flavours. The traditional English red ale does have elements of both flavours, and in fairness I can see a little bit what it's going for, but as I say, for me it's a good beer, don't get me wrong on that, it's a good beer. But I think in terms of the red ale style, for me it doesn't hit that note. It's more like a kind of Belgian ale, this one. Sort of like, it actually reminds me a bit more of a Belgian trip ale than it does of a red ale actually. It's very interesting in that regard, but like I was saying earlier, earthy hops around the back corners of the palate, smoother grassiness as you come forward, but some floral aromaticity as you go around the front edge of the tongue. It's actually a bit dry on the front edge of the tongue, but some big bready yeasty notes, they blanket the middle of your palate there. On top of that there's a bit of a slightly caramelly slightly sort of biscuit syrup kind of flavour that you're getting on your tongue there. So that's an element of the red ale, but it actually even feels, to me it feels like a Belgian beer. Just down here, it goes down like a Belgian beer. Behind the front of the tongue though, you're getting some of the fruity esters. You'll feel a little bit of an oily bubble behind the very front of your tongue there, and that's where you're getting a little bit of the fruity esters. It's not really tropical fruit, which as I say is what you would expect of an American red ale. This one's a little bit more of a sort of kind of that citrusy character that you expect from a Belgian wit beer, but a bit toned down actually, more the kind of citrusy character that you expect of a Belgian triple actually. It's the kind of citrus, a bit of a lemony citrus that just mixes well with that big Belgian yeasty character that's in this beer. Maybe there's a bit of orange flavour, I would say. I think orange, sort of a juicy, citrusy orange just in that little oily bubble behind the tongue as well. It's interesting, this beer, don't get me wrong, this is actually a really nice beer and I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, but as I say, the thing that confused me about this beer was that it said it's a red ale, but it really to me comes across as more of a Belgian ale, which is quite unusual actually. As I said, they were apparently wanting to do a brown ale or a bitter, but then they settled on the red ale because it had a bit of a characteristic of both. But in the middle of the palate with this one, you can actually pick up a bit of the cereally character too. You can just taste that in the middle of the palate as you go into the aftertaste. And incidentally, that aftertaste, there's a good focus on the slightly dry aromatic features of this beer and smoother hoppy character around the edge of the tongue too. But overall, it's actually quite a nice and quite enjoyable beer, and I would recommend it to you if you enjoy your sort of Belgian style ales. It's got a little bit of a kind of, it's really not a red ale. That's the only issue I have with this beer. It says it's a red ale, but it just isn't. It's more like a Belgian beer, and don't get me wrong, it's a good beer, perfectly enjoyable, but you know, definitely not a red beer at all in my opinion. It comes across completely differently, and I hope you'll kind of take what I say with that. I'm not having a dig at the brewery or anything like that. It just is not, for me, it's not a red ale, it's a Belgian beer. That's my opinion on it. I've tried 570 odd beers, and this to me, the thing that it comes across to me is more of a Belgian ale, some kind of triple hybrid. But anyway, in terms of the mouthfeel with this one, I would say It is quite well balanced between the hoppy character and also the bready character. It's got a good balance between the malt and the hops. Around the front edge of the tongue it's a little bit dry, smoother and a bit more wet around the back edges of the palate. But in the middle of the tongue, it does have a little bit of sweetness. As I said, there's a little bit of caramel in there. It's mid-bodied, I would say, and the carbonation is quite smooth, and it does have quite an oily mouthfeel to it as well. But it's definitely an interesting beer, and it does taste good. As I said, my only issue is with the fact that it says it's a red ale, but really it's not, in my opinion. But you know, it's a good beer, and I would happily drink it again. That's the main point. We can argue about styles all day, but this really, for me, is a nice beer. That's the kind of the thing I really want to say about this beer. It's enjoyable, it's nice. If you enjoy a Belgian beer, then I would give it a go. If you like a kind of big bready yeasty flavour, then it's worth trying as well. It's got a good balance between the hops and also the malt. So yeah, I would recommend that you give this beer a try. I really would like to try some of the other beers from Heavy Metale Brewery as well. Perhaps the IPA and the dark beer as well. That would give you a good idea of how they do with the lighter beers and also how they do with the darker beer. So I'll see if I can get a hold of those. Hopefully I can in the fairly near future, because it seems like an interesting company. I'm a huge metalhead as well, so I would like to actually try a few more of their beers and things like that. But yeah, so I would say go and check out the Heavy Metale Brewery. They've apparently got some really nice beers, and I would agree that this one is a good beer, as I said, for me. Just not a red ale, more like a Belgian beer. So I would recommend this to people who enjoy their Belgian beers, the big bready yeasty character. But go and check out Heavy Metale Brewery. If you like craft beer and you like heavy metal, I'm sure you'll enjoy this. And another brewery I would recommend to you metalheads is also the Black Metal Brewery from Scotland as well. They are a company who take the same kind of idea as this. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been an interesting one for me to do, but I thank you again for watching it. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I thank you again for watching my beer reviews, and until the next one, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you soon. So cheers.